The Scenes was a different story entirely. Feuds, creative disputes, and shocking exits shattered the illusion of harmony. Why did some of the show's most beloved stars abandon one of TV's biggest hits? Was it fame, frustration, or something darker? Are you ready to hear the stories they didn't want you to know? Today, we uncover the truth behind Bonanza's greatest departures. Insider accounts, hidden tensions, and moments that changed television history. From backstage clashes to heartbreaking losses, this is the real story. Pernell Roberts, the actor who walked away. Pernell Roberts' decision to leave Bonanza shocked fans and baffled insiders. At a time when the show dominated TV, walking away seemed unthinkable. But behind his thoughtful portrayal of Adam Cartwright was a man battling artistic frustration and a longing for deeper, more meaningful work. From the start, in 1959, Roberts gave Adam a quiet sophistication. The city-educated eldest son, architect of the Ponderosa's future. But as seasons passed, he felt trapped by repetitive scripts that failed to explore Adam's complexity. For a trained stage actor, delivering predictable lines week after week became unbearable. Roberts' struggles weren't just with the writing. He clashed with producers and network executives, pushing for riskier stories that tackled moral dilemmas and left audiences with tension and reflection rather than tidy resolutions. Though Bonanza addressed social issues more than most shows of its time, it still fell short for Roberts. He yearned for richer storytelling and didn't hide his discontent. In interviews, he spoke openly about wanting Adam to face real inner conflict and growth. For Roberts, staying meant sacrificing his artistic integrity. As he bluntly put it in 1965, "My being part of a television series is like Vincent van Gogh painting a sign over a laundry in order to pay his rent." The producers, focused on preserving the successful formula, weren't willing to change. This creative deadlock wore on Roberts. The stress and boredom of playing the same role affected his mental health, and he even sought medical help for the anxiety that grew as he stayed. The fame and generous paycheck weren't enough to ease his restlessness. While colleagues saw him as reckless for considering an exit, Roberts saw no other way. In 1965, after 6 seasons, he made the choice that defined his career. He walked away. Adam's departure was explained with a single line: he'd gone to sea. There was no farewell episode, just silence. Pernell Roberts, for some reason, felt disappointed at some point in his run-through. I know that at a party, I met him years later after he had left. He announced to a few people, "No, if you want to know, I'm not sorry." And then he'd go on at the party because he knew people were going to say, "What happened to you?" He gave up several millions of dollars. Roberts returned to the stage, starring in Mata Hari on Broadway. The show flopped, but his performance earned praise. Later, he found success on TV again with Trapper John, M.D., enjoying greater creative freedom. Reflecting on his choice, Roberts said, "The important thing is that I tried. I didn't let myself rot in comfort. I took the risk." Though he never became the major movie star, some predicted Roberts left a legacy of integrity, an actor who refused to compromise his principles. He retired in 1997 and passed away in 2010, remembered as a man who valued truth in his work above all else. But what happens when an actor doesn't leave by choice? Next, we'll explore the heartbreaking loss that shattered the Bonanza family. Dan Blocker's tragic end. Dan Blocker, a sudden farewell. Dan Blocker's exit from Bonanza wasn't a choice. It was a tragedy that blindsided the entire cast, crew, and audience. To fans, Blocker wasn't just part of the show, he was its heart. As Eric Haas Cartwright, he brought warmth, humor, and tenderness that balanced the fiery and brooding traits of his on-screen brothers. His gentle nature made Haas a favorite among viewers of all ages. Behind the scenes, Blocker was as remarkable as the character he played. Born in 1928 in DeKalb, Texas, Blocker was known from birth for his size, reportedly the largest baby ever born in Bowie County, weighing 14 pounds. Despite his imposing frame, he carried himself with quiet humility. Before Hollywood discovered him, Blocker's life was full of unexpected chapters. He earned a master's degree in dramatic arts and served as an infantry sergeant in the Korean War, earning a Purple Heart. That military experience shaped his strength and resilience. After the war, he turned to acting, starting with small stage roles and TV bit parts before his talent and screen presence led him to Bonanza. The role of Haas fit Blocker perfectly. The nickname, slang for a big, dependable horse, matched both the character and the man. Blocker elevated Haas from comic relief to the emotional glue of the Cartwright family. Week after week, Haas solved problems with kindness and common sense, winning deep affection from fans. Blocker admitted that playing Haas wasn't always easy. Early on, he struggled to separate himself from the character, often slipping into Haas's accommodating persona offset. It took several seasons before he found a healthy boundary. Still, his dedication showed in every episode. That's what made his sudden death in 1972 so devastating. At just 43, Blocker went in for routine gallbladder surgery, but complications arose and a pulmonary embolism took his life within hours. He had pancreatitis, and he had stopped. He wasn't a drunk, but he stopped drinking entirely. He cleaned up his act, and a blood clot somewhere developed in his leg and got to his heart before they could get him to the hospital. And that's what killed him. The loss hit the Bonanza family hard. The producers made a bold decision. Rather than replace Haas or quietly write him out, they addressed his death directly. For the first time, a major television series openly confronted the loss of a beloved character. A choice that reflected the real grief felt by cast and crew. Dan Blocker's legacy lives on as the soul of the Ponderosa, a gentle giant who reminded audiences that strength can come with compassion, and that heroes don't always need to raise their fists to make an impact. David Canary, undervalued and undone. David Canary's time on Bonanza was shorter than that of many co-stars, but his impact was undeniable. As Candy Kennedy, the spirited foreman of the Ponderosa, he injected fresh energy into a show that was beginning to show its age. More than hired help, Candy quickly became part of the Cartwright family, earning both their trust and the affection of viewers. But behind Candy's charm, trouble was brewing. It wasn't about artistic clashes or creative frustration. It came down to cold business. When Canary joined the show in its 9th season, Bonanza was still a giant on American television. Candy's role was designed to bring youthful vigor, moral strength, and a new layer of brotherhood. Canary rose to the task, creating a character who felt like a natural extension of the Cartwright clan. His blend of toughness and heart made Candy a bridge between the old guard and a newer, faster-paced West. But, as Bonanza endured, tensions mounted, not over stories, but over pay. While stars like Lorne Greene and Michael Landon saw their salaries rise, Canary was offered only modest increases, despite his growing importance. It was a stark reminder of how supporting actors were often undervalued, no matter how vital they were to a show's success. Feeling disrespected, Canary made the difficult decision to leave. His exit was quiet. There was no big farewell, no dramatic send-off. One day, Candy was there. The next, he was gone. His absence explained with a brief line, as if he'd never been central to life on the Ponderosa. What made Canary's departure so striking was how it exposed the deeper issue of fairness in television. His situation highlighted how networks often prioritized big names while overlooking the essential contributions of ensemble players. For Canary, Leaving wasn't just about money, it was about standing up for his worth. After Dan Blocker's death, with Bonanza struggling to regain its footing, producers invited Canary back, reportedly at Michael Landon's urging and on better terms. Canary accepted, rejoining the show for its final seasons and reminding audiences of what they'd missed. He was fighting against that. He wanted to keep it going, but he saw this coming after Dan died. He was succumbed to the pressure, and he had no choice. They dropped us. Beyond Bonanza, Canary's career thrived. He found his greatest fame on All My Children, playing the dual roles of Adam and Stuart Chandler, earning multiple Emmy Awards and showcasing his extraordinary talent. Canary's time on Bonanza stands as a powerful example of integrity. How one actor's sense of self-respect shaped a beloved series, and how his absence reminded everyone just how much he mattered. And then there's the star whose charisma may have cost him everything. Find out how rising fame sparked tension. Guy Williams, too popular for comfort. Guy Williams's arrival at Bonanza was supposed to lay the groundwork for an exciting new chapter in the series. He was tall, charming, and well-loved for his role as Zorro. What better candidate to step into the shoes left empty with the departure of Pernell Roberts? He joined the cast as Will Cartwright, a nephew of Ben's, a new addition meant to balance out Ponderosa's family dynamics. On paper, the odds stood in favor of Will Cartwright. He had family relations, good looks, and enough screen presence to have inspired a whole new set of storylines. What was soon to follow, an unraveling story from behind the scenes, truly told another story. Williams' brief Bonanza career was clouded with speculation that left fans confused, with insiders whispering about tensions never made public. When Williams first stepped onto the set, the hope was that he could ease the transition after Pernell Roberts' exit. Audiences loved Adam Cartwright, and replacing him wouldn't be easy. But with his prior success as Zorro, Williams brought a built-in fan base and undeniable charm. His early episodes as Will showed promise. He fit naturally into scenes with Lorne Greene's Ben Cartwright, and his interactions with Michael Landon's Little Joe and Dan Blocker's Haas hinted at the chemistry the producers were counting on. Yet beneath the surface, cracks began to form almost immediately. Rumors spread that not everyone welcomed Williams with open arms. In particular, whispers suggested that Michael Landon, already an emerging creative force on the show, saw Williams' arrival as a threat. Williams' height, good looks, and heroic aura drew attention, and some believed Landon feared that his position as the show's youthful heartthrob was in jeopardy. Guy Williams was hired to be the father figure and the star of the show. And suddenly what happened? Jonathan Harris is the star of the show. And the whole world talks about Jonathan Harris. And that's what happened. Whether real or exaggerated, it was a case of doom. Fewer and fewer scripts featuring Will Cartwright surfaced, and less substantial. Storylines that could have developed for this character have been abandoned or rewritten. After only a few episodes, Williams was quietly written out with little fanfare and explanation. For a character introduced as one of the major family members, Will's exit created a considerable gap. Fans were left scratching their heads. Why would the producers let go of such a character so soon? The official line cited creative decisions, but insiders hinted at behind-the-scenes politics. It was not the end of the career of Williams by such a disappointing last moment of Bonanza. He shortly afterward won the role that was to define his place in pop culture history, Professor John Robinson, in Lost in Space. But once again, his performance melted the hearts of the audience as the ever-constant father figure who guided his family through the dangers of the galaxy. The character was supposed to expose him to hero, warmth, and quiet strength, which the show Bonanza hardly had the opportunity to cover. Williams, however, again embraced life off-screen. his second home being the country of Argentina, which adored him for his Zorro work and where he opted to spend most of his later life. Here, he lived blissfully, embraced by fans who went so far as to hail him as a hero until he was found dead in 1989, an apparent victim of a brain aneurysm. Lorne Greene, the reluctant patriarch. Lorne Greene's voice and presence defined Bonanza as much as its sweeping landscapes. As Ben Cartwright, the firm but compassionate father of the Ponderosa, Greene became a symbol of stability, wisdom, and moral clarity. His deep baritone, steady gaze, and kind authority anchored the series for all 14 seasons. But while audiences saw him as the unshakable patriarch, the reality behind the scenes was more complex. Born Lion Hyman Greene in 1915 in Ottawa, Canada, Greene had already made a name for himself as a World War II newscaster, earning the nickname the Voice of Canada for his steady, reassuring reports. Before Bonanza, he worked steadily on stage in films and on television, but nothing compared to the fame Bonanza brought him. Almost overnight, Greene became one of the most recognizable faces on American TV. He wasn't just playing a father. He became one in the eyes of millions, a figure viewers could trust and admire. Yet by the late 1960s, cracks appeared in his relationship with the role that made him a household name. In a 1967 interview, Greene surprised fans when asked if he hoped Bonanza would run another 8 years. His answer? No. It wasn't bitterness, but the honest reflection of an artist aware of time's passage. Greene was proud of Bonanza, but feared becoming too comfortable, too tied to a single role. He worried that if he stayed too long, other creative opportunities and personal passions would slip away. For Greene, Bonanza was the double-edged sword of a blessing and a gilded cage. The steady work, fame, and adoring fans built everything into a tribute. Yet, he wanted much more variety, challenge, and renewal as an artist. He continued, nevertheless, into the very end of that series. A consummate professional, Greene took his role very seriously as the leading man in the show. On and off screen, he was a calming influence and respected for his mediation when tensions ran high among the cast. He guided young actors and helped keep production on course, even in rough times. Whatever other dreams he harbored beyond Ben Cartwright, Greene never let them glint their way into his dedication. When Bonanza folded in 1973 after 14 seasons, Greene had a chance to reinvent himself. Few could have predicted that this would happen next. Greene turned to music. His rich voice found a new audience in country recordings, but even more impressively, in 1964, he had a #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 with Ringo, a spoken-word ballad. He may be better remembered, however, for a legacy built beyond Ben Cartwright. He showed how even the most iconic roles cannot encase a true artist's desire to grow, explore, and surprise. Victor Sen-Yung, breaking barriers, facing battles. There is one other character that I would like to mention as an integral part of the success of Bonanza, and that was Victor Sen-Yung. Victor represented a very important part of the configuration. Victor Sen-Yung's role as Hop Sing on Bonanza was far more significant than many realize. At first glance, the Cartwrights' loyal cook might have seemed like comic relief or a simple background character. Yet under Sen-Yung's thoughtful portrayal, Hop Sing became so much more. An early, quiet breakthrough for Asian representation on American television, at a time when such visibility was rare and often undervalued. His presence helped millions of viewers see an Asian character treated with dignity on a major network series. Hop Sing might have started as a stereotype, confined to the kitchen or providing light-hearted moments, but Sen-Yung infused him with warmth, humor, intelligence, and quiet strength. He transformed what could have been a one-dimensional figure into a beloved part of the Ponderosa family. Hop Sing wasn't just a servant. He was essential to the Cartwrights' lives and earned the affection and respect of both the family and the audience, becoming part of the show's emotional core. Off-screen, though, Sen Jung's struggles continued. Despite his talent and dedication, Hollywood limited him mostly to background or supporting roles, rarely offering the opportunities his abilities deserved. He worked tirelessly to break out of those limitations, hoping for more substantial parts that rarely came. To supplement his acting career, Sen Jung pursued another of his passions, cooking. A skilled chef, he authored the Great Wok Cookbook, helping introduce authentic Chinese cuisine to many American households at a time when such dishes were still considered unfamiliar or exotic. His work helped bridge cultural gaps, even as his on-screen roles remained limited. Tragedy and hardship marked his later years. In 1972, Sen Jung survived a terrifying ordeal when a commercial flight he was on was hijacked. He was shot in the back during the incident, but miraculously lived. The trauma left lasting scars both physically and emotionally. Roles became scarcer as he aged, with Hollywood's casting habits remaining stubbornly narrow. Throughout his career, he stayed with us until the very end, I think. In 1980, Sen Jung's life came to a tragic end. He was found dead in his home, the victim of accidental natural gas poisoning. His quiet passing marked the close of a career that broke barriers, brought heart to a beloved series, and paved the way for greater diversity on television. Even if his contributions often went unrecognized in his lifetime. Finally, the heartthrob who became Bonanza's soul, only to face an early heartbreaking end. Michael Landon, the soul of the Ponderosa. He was Michael Landon, but more than just little Joe Cartwright, an internal heartbeat for millions. Landon would have stood for the fiery soul of Bonanza. He, who shared with the Ponderosa his vigorous and passionate self, he had a reputation as having the rebellious grin, youthful vigor, and penetrating eyes with which Landon infused the very spirit of the show, in opposition to that of the always steady wisdom personified by his father Ben, and the gentle kindness conveyed by Haas. But behind the entire show lay something that was more complex than his on-screen charm. For combined with his rise on Bonanza would be both personal struggles, so pent up, fierce ambition, and ultimately a heartbreaking early end, leaving fans mourning not just an actor, but a slice of television history. It's Eugene Maurice Orowitz, born in 1936 in Forest Hills, New York, is Michael Landon. Early on, he was thwarted by much hardship because of his mother, who was a lunatic and kept trying to commit suicide. He found solace in athletics, javelin throwing, and earned a scholarship to the University of Southern California. But an injury dashed golden dreams and changed arenas into another Hollywood stage. Borrowed the name Michael Landon from the telephone book and began picking up small roles. His big break came in 1957's I Was a Teenage Werewolf, a cult horror hit that showed off his brooding charisma. But it was Bonanza that turned him into a star. As Little Joe, Landon became the face of youthful rebellion and charm on the Ponderosa. He wasn't just a pretty face. He gave Little Joe emotional depth, showing the pain of loss, the thrill of love, and the fire of a young man trying to find his place in the world. Over time, Landon's role expanded beyond acting. He began writing and directing episodes, rare for someone so young on a major network show. His talent behind the camera became clear, and soon he was one of the creators of the show. He was one of the creative forces shaping Bonanza's stories. But with that influence came friction. Landon's ambition sometimes put him at odds with colleagues and producers, as he fought for more meaningful, heartfelt narratives. He wasn't content to coast on the show's success. He wanted Bonanza to matter, to say something. Landon was gaining in power on the set, yet privately was still battling some demons. His childhood had left some emotional scars that were never quite healed, and he worked very hard, many said obsessively, to prove himself. Michael Landon interviewed on inoperable cancer diagnosis, April 8, 1991. It's not really a matter of your loved ones becoming more precious to you, because they're as precious as they can be. The series, like Bonanza, revolved around family, moral teachings, and the spirit of America. This time, however, it was possible for him to exercise greater control. Later, Highway to Heaven was able to shine a light on redemption and hope, two values that have characterized his lifelong quest for meaning. Ray Teal, the quiet backbone who stepped away. Bonanza was filled with larger-than-life characters who drew attention with fiery tempers, passionate speeches, or bold actions. Ray Teal's Sheriff Roy Coffey brought something different, a steady moral compass and quiet strength that grounded the show. As the lawman of Virginia City, Sheriff Coffey represented fairness, decency, and an unwavering commitment to justice. In a world of outlaws and frontier conflicts, Roy Coffey was a figure audiences could trust, the kind of character who made the Ponderosa feel like part of a real, lived-in community. Teal was no newcomer to the screen when he joined Bonanza in 1960. Born in 1902, Ray Teal had built a long and respected career in Hollywood, appearing in more than 250 films and countless television episodes. His face was familiar to fans of westerns, crime dramas, and war pictures, where he often played sheriffs, deputies, or tough but fair authority figures. His deep voice, calm demeanor, and subtle presence made him a natural fit for these roles. But on Bonanza, Teal found perhaps his most beloved and lasting character. Week after week, Sheriff Coffey helped resolve disputes, tracked down fugitives, and offered wise counsel to Ben Cartwright and his sons. He wasn't flashy, and he rarely found himself at the center of dramatic plots, but his presence added authenticity to the show's world. His Roy Coffey was a man of principle, someone who embodied the kind of justice that Bonanza sought to celebrate. Yet, behind the badge, there stood a man who had exerted his efforts for decades in one of the more exacting corners of Hollywood. By the early 70s, Teal's ability to work had begun to fade. It was honest after 40-odd years of uninterrupted work, often at brutal, exacting locations under unfavorable terrain. Teal's body just could not take it anymore. He had not left Bonanza due to disputes involving creativity, contract differences. It was plainly just his body speaking out for him to take it easy. He began to gradually withdraw from the workplace. The gradualness of the departure marked no drama or evidence of a tearful farewell. He had not only been in poor health, but he also left behind a legacy of professional dignity and modesty. For his avid fans, he would always remain as the reliable sheriff Roy Coffey, the one lawman who could instill calmness and dignity amid Ponderosa's sometimes chaotic world. Ray Teal died in 1976 at age 74, and his contributions to Bonanza and classic television will forever be cherished and revered. Mitch Vogel, the child star who outgrew the Ponderosa. Mitch Vogel joined Bonanza during its later years, stepping into the role of Jamie Hunter Cartwright, the red-haired orphan who would become Ben Cartwright's adopted son. Vogel's arrival in 1970 was part of the producer's effort to inject fresh energy into a show that, after more than a decade on the air, was beginning to show its age. With the departure of beloved characters and the loss of Dan Blocker, Bonanza needed a new spark. Vogel provided just that, bringing warmth, vulnerability, and a sense of hope to the Ponderosa. At just 14 years old, Vogel impressed both viewers and colleagues with his natural, heartfelt performance. Jamie captured hearts with his earnestness and fierce loyalty to his new family. Audiences watched as the orphan boy found not just a home, but a father in Ben and brothers in Little Joe and the other Cartwrights. His character represented a fresh chapter for the Cartwright clan, and his early storylines explored themes of belonging, loss, and the challenges of adjusting to a new life. But as Vogel grew older, the dynamics that had made Jamie's presence so endearing began to shift. The innocent charm of the young boy who tugged at heartstrings became harder to sustain as he matured into a teenager. The writers, already grappling with a show nearing its end, struggled to find new directions for Jamie. Episodes focused less and less on his character, and Jamie became more of a background presence. Apparently, all through the years, Vogel has reportedly felt cramped up by being called the Kid, despite being on the verge of adulthood. He was ready for new kinds of roles that Bonanza could promise Jamie beyond his original purpose in the series. This evolution coincided with the overall ratings decline for the show, and suddenly it was obvious that there was a closing chapter for Bonanza and for Vogel as a member of the Cartwright family. His departure from Bonanza had no melodrama or controversy in 1973. It was merely the completion of both. Thereafter, he did guest spots on Little House on the Prairie and Here Comes the Brides. In the end, he followed the prescribed Hollywood path and departed for solitude, relishing years away from fame and into a simple life revolving instead around family and personal pursuits. Today, those fans remember him fondly as the kid who came in to help brighten the Ponderosa when it sorely needed some cheering. Which of these stories shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into classic TV's untold stories. And click the next video on your screen to uncover even more hidden truths from the golden age of television.